Well, a very good morning from Karon. Today is Friday the 23rd of August. Some of you may have seen on my YouTube channel, my shorts, yesterday's weather in Patong was absolutely beautiful, but overnight we have had some very heavy rain across parts of Phuket, and I woke up this morning to see lots of reports on social media of how there was flooding in Karon and Kata. We've also had a landslide that has claimed, I believe, one person's life, and there are two missing. Now the landslide is very bad indeed, and I have driven past that area this morning. Regarding the flooding around the Centara in Kata, yes, there has been some flooding and businesses have been affected. As I've came past, a lot of them are of course making repairs, etc. However, generally in Kata there isn't too much damage or lying water. You can see behind me here in Karon, this is an outlet into the sea. It's very swollen. The sea is very rough. It is now coming up to 11 o'clock in the morning and most of the flood water has drained away. I woke up to comments on my Facebook group from people saying how they're coming next week or in a month's time or in a few days' time, and how are the floods going to affect them? Well, quite simply, they aren't going to affect you, because one thing about Phuket is, yes, the weather can change very quickly, as you've seen, from beautiful blue skies to torrential downpours, and because of the volume of water, the storm drains do get overwhelmed, and that does cause flooding. But this flooding is normally very localized. Occasionally, if the rain persists for a long period of time, and when I say persists, I'm talking about days on end, which is very rare here in Phuket. Even in rainy season, we do tend to get batches of rain that may last a few hours, overnight, a morning and afternoon, etc., or even sometimes all day. But it's very rare for it to persist for any length of time, more than a day. Obviously, if that does occur, then there will be widespread flooding. But from last night, I believe it was about 4 or 5 hours of heavy rain. Of course, this did overwhelm some storm drains, so there has been some very localized flooding here in Kata and Karon. But overall, the area has not been too badly affected, apart from the late landslide. Obviously, a lot of clearing up. Condolences to the family that have lost that person, and there are, I believe at the moment, still 2 people missing with that, so that's very bad. But this is one of the things that you will find here on the island of Phuket during a rainy season. We are prone to heavy bouts of rain. Nobody can predict when these rains will occur, so obviously if you're worried about flooding, then what I recommend is look at the area that you're staying very closely, see whether there's any history of flooding in that area, because if you're coming at this time of year, normally August isn't too bad. We're actually coming up to the worst months, September and October. That traditionally does have a lot of rainfall, especially October. If any of you have followed me for any time, you will see that the vegetarian festival takes place in October, and virtually every time I've filmed it, it's always rained. So October is traditionally a very wet month, and September also. But that doesn't mean it's going to rain all month, because that again is very rare. But we do have batches of heavy rain, and this is the situation when we get the heavy rain. The drains get overwhelmed, the flood system can't cope. Obviously, with the amount of building here on the island, it has taken away some of the natural drainage that the island would normally have. Of course, a development here over the years in Phuket has exploded, but unfortunately they haven't taken into account the downsides of all this building. It has taken away some of the natural land that would automatically take away some of the flood waters and allow for the overspill. So that isn't here, but you can see behind me here the sea very angry today because of the storm last night. Definitely no swimming today. As I've mentioned before, if you're coming over here this time of year, try and pick a hotel with good swimming pools, because this is what you may encounter, but it won't last. It's maybe a day, a couple of days, and the weather will change again, and it'll be beautiful blue skies and things will be back to normal already. By coming up to lunchtime, things are now starting to settle down here, and hopefully by this evening tomorrow, providing we don't get more rain of course, things will be pretty much back to normal, which is the way things work. So if you're coming out here in the next week, in a month's time, don't overly worry about the weather. The one thing that really winds me about social media, unfortunately there are a lot of people out there that use social media to make money from, and of course bad news sells. So the first thing they do when we get some flooding, they jump out, they film all this flooding, make it a lot worse than what it actually is. They dramatise it because they want people to view it. Their intention is only to make money out of social media, unfortunately. And this is one thing that I don't do. I try to cover the things that are happening on the island in a realistic and no-nonsense way. If it's bad, then I will say it's bad. If it's not, then I'm not going to try and dramatise it to get extra views. That doesn't interest me. I do get a little bit annoyed by the amount of people that do use things that happen here in the wrong way and give a false impression here. Things are already settling down back to normal. Yes, there are a few businesses still clearing up, as I've seen as I've been driving around, but generally across the island all the main roads are clear, they're not flooded. The whole island isn't flooded, but people are thinking that because of the pictures on social media, oh, everywhere in Phuket's going to be underwater, and that is not the case at all. It's very localised. The problem that I think they've had in Kata is that one storm drain has got very overloaded, unfortunately, it hasn't been able to cope, and that has caused the flooding around Centara. Has it happened before? Not too much to my knowledge. Obviously flooding does happen, but this is something that you need to check. If you're staying in these areas, maybe check to see whether it's prone to flooding, and then if so, maybe stay somewhere else that's not so prone to flooding if you're coming at this time of year, because of course the flooding may affect your holiday for a few hours. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this update on the current situation here in Karon. And please don't overly worry about it, as I say, because the weather is already changing, the blue skies are here, the sun is coming out and things are drying up. I will speak to you soon.